Guys, I'm starting. Thank you. All right, so it's time to have another discussion on Hangout for Channels Beam. And this time we're discussing OpenNASS. Well, it's been a battle to get the figures of the National Assembly to get their budgets to make it public for years now. And finally, we have the figure. We have 125 billion naira for the 2017 budget of the National Assembly. And a lot of people are saying this is, well, one step forward. But there's also been a lot of criticism, about the figure. So let's start with Babatope. Babatope, what do you think about NAS making public their budget? Is this worth the celebration at all?
Thank you very much for having me here. Before we actually talk about it, I want our viewers to actually have some figures and know what we are talking about and how they intend to spend and how they intend to also get the money. Now, from what I studied about their proposed budget, which is not assented yet, I think either the acting president in the person of Professor Yemi Osinbajo should be the one to do that. According to the budget, I can see they have a deficit of 2.269 trillion naira. Then, if I'm right with my figures, then a debt servicing of 1.66 trillion naira. Then they also said independent and other revenue 1.24 trillion naira. Non-debt recurrent expenditure 2.9 trillion naira. Then from there, they proposed that the money was going to come from oil revenue was going to come from 1.985 trillion naira was going to come from oil revenue. Then 1.7 trillion naira was going to come from non-oil revenue. Then 1.2 trillion naira was going to come from federal government independent and other revenues. So one thing I see about this is that to me, personally speaking, I think it's a very, very okay budget in the sense that we have more of domestic borrowings, then we have lesser of external borrowings. The domestic borrowings we are going to be having is 1.252 trillion naira, and we are going to be having external borrowings of 1.067 trillion naira. Because these figures are very important, because without these figures, we might just be giving our own opinion, and the people we're talking to, the viewers, won't know what we're talking about. Because as you all clearly stated, they just released these figures. Then, according to what I said earlier, the non-debt recurrent expenditure, which is 2.9 trillion.
Sorry, Babatope, sorry to interrupt your flow. But we're actually talking about the National Assembly budgets, not the national budget, the one for
the national budget.
Yeah, the one for the National Assembly, which is 125 billion.
Sorry, I got that.
As against the 115 billion.
I got that. My mind was at the national level, but I was thinking.
Yes, you can see you're very passionate about that. So what do you think?
Because seriously, that's what affects the normal layman. Because people that voted for them, this is what affects them. How does that affect their life? Because I thought that was what we're talking about.
Don't you think that the National Assembly budget also affects the day-to-day life of Nigerians? You don't think so?
In my own opinion, though, according to the way things have been happening and the way they've been running things, it's very difficult to actually say it affects us directly, because when the lawmakers are not, when they are not responsible to us, like when you can't question them, when you can't hold them to their political manifestos, abuse of power is inevitable. So, in my own opinion, talking about NAS budget, it indirectly affects us, that's as a nation, Nigeria now. But we hope we get to a situation whereby directly the civilian populace is able to actually be affected by that.
Atiku.
Yep.
Atiku, so is this victory, is it worth celebrating or just too minute for celebration?
Well, I'll try to, yeah, it's okay to actually look at it. And then, of course, we look at it from two mirrors. Number one, for the first time since 2009, if I'm right, having a National Assembly budget actually showing you detailed breakdown. Historically, what we've had is just that broad number, 250 billion, 225 billion, 215 billion, without really looking at the document. And we've seen incidents where the speaker actually brought out his payslip showing some wonderful bill that will most likely not even, I mean, I wonder how he survives on that bill. I mean, living in Abuja. But now we know absolutely, I mean, what is earning and what's going to his score, which is good. I mean, so in terms of transparency, we are one step there. But notwithstanding, if we try to look at the budget and then we take an holistic view of the economy of Nigeria, and we're trying to juxtapose and see whether this is actually good. We have to understand that 10 state governments, if you look at their budget this year, 10 state governments are actually running budgets that are lower than what the National Assembly is proposing. And in clear terms, beyond, if you look at the actual spending of state government in real terms, I can assure you that close to 25 state governments don't spend up to 125 billion. So if we look at it from that other angle, we say, wow, why would National Assembly be spending this? And then we go into the document, they begin to see funny things like 75 billion to just clear sewage. Doesn't really make the seawater rate of almost 200 million. So we can go into that document and begin to see issues like that. But I think from the overall view of transparency, we are getting there. That means we could see everything, which is good. And more importantly, we have to understand that we also have agencies. For instance, the entire university system in Nigeria, if you look at University of Lagos, for instance, and you look at the national budget of Nigeria, what you see there is just a tiny fraction of what the University of Lagos is spending. The biggest bulk of what they spend is unknown to the public. You look at Federal Inland Revenue Service, the biggest chunk of their money, which at some instances run over 60 billion, is not known to anybody. So we can go, we have more than close to about 200 agencies of government that will not really know how much they are spending, how they are spending the money. So for the National Assembly to open up its budget, it shows that they now have a strong moral ground to demand that those agencies also submit their budget to scrutiny. I think the overall objective is to ensure that we have a transparent government. And if, of course, the National Assembly is taking that step now, I think it's good. So it's a mixed bag of good and bad. The bad aspect has to do with the economy, but the good aspect has to do with transparency. Of course, we know with transparency, scrutiny sets in, and then we begin to correct those abnormalities. I think that's just my take on that.
All right, Victor, it seems that Nigerians are just asking for too much. You ask for the figures, you get the figures. Now you're making trouble about the figures you have gotten. What do you people really want?
The citizenry can never ask for too much. It's impossible for the citizenry to ask for too much. They are the contributor of the Commonwealth. And so if a group of people will now sit somewhere and say the people who are working their shoulders off, to use the word, are asking for too much, I think it's denigrating, and it's a slap on the face of the Nigerian people. I mean, 360 people or so cannot sit down and spend more than 170 something plus million. If we remove them, are spending in a year. It's rubbish. And OpenNASS is far beyond even the budget. We step forward. OpenNASS is also talking about how to replace this say nay, say hi. That is barbaric. That is archaic. That nobody does that in this age again. For Nigeria to want to be a global competitor, we cannot keep saying hi and saying nay. There has to be an electronic voting system in the Senate. Of course, they have it, but they are not using it. And this is part of the things that OpenNASS is looking at addressing. And also, the OpenNASS should be also about a functional website that attendance of representatives and senators can be seen. Of what use is a senator who is not attending sittings when we are not doing part-time parliamentary system? This is not part-time parliamentary system. This is full-time. So we should be able to know who is attending, who is not. And we should look at OpenNASS also about looking at how can we engage with them directly. How can they engage directly with the populace? Not about kakistocracy or some group of people who think they are all almighty, sitting in one place and disenfranchising those who they believe are poor and are of lower class. Until we can build a collective environment where people can hear their views and can be heard. And that is also a part of the OpenNASS that we are talking about, where we can talk about how can we reduce the salary of these people. We know they are collecting bogus amounts, amounts that should not even be mentioned. Nigerian parliamentarians are, perhaps one of the highest paid in the world. This is a fact known to everybody. OpenNASS is also about them providing audit for the amount they've spent over the years. Fact has it that they've spent over 1.15 trillion naira between 2005 and 2014. While the 8th Senate may argue that its own life started in the year 2015, we cannot remove it. They cannot say they are oblivious to what has happened, or neither can they say they are sacrosanct to it, because government, as we know, is always in continuum. So to say that the people is an aberration. It should not be said in a place where people are thinking and where people are regarded.
Victor, thank you so much. But so, Babatope, people like yourself and Victor are not even residents in Nigeria, and you're talking of, making more demands and engaging the lawmakers and the leaders. How do you intend to go about that when you're not even at home?
That's a wonderful question. Thank you very much. Actually, what your question about us not staying in Nigeria at the moment is not about staying abroad. It's, when people in Nigeria, when their voices are not heard, the same legislators, let me pronounce it well, legislators, they've not created a forum whereby the people who elected them into office can have a feedback response from them to them. You understand what I mean? When you have a kind of situation whereby, go to other countries whereby the electorate has a say in the governance of themselves. It's a very sorry state, the way everything I've heard about the whole legislative arm is. How can you make a budget for yourself and increase it by 10.3 billion naira? I understand that we might want to agree that, okay, they are being open, and we should encourage that. But the point is just that, what are these things used for? We're talking about recession, whereby government is meant to cut costs. Instead, you are increasing your budget. Where is that said? Even if you want to increase your budget, what do you want to use the increment for? Is it for the people who elected you into office? How do you want to get across to them? How do you want to hear a feedback response from them? Is there a town hall meeting with the people who elected you? Those are the questions we should be asking about. Whether someone is honest or whether someone has a good intention by opening his books to you that, okay, I want to increase with 10 billion naira. It's not about that. Whether you want to increase or you don't want to increase, you must state clearly the purpose and the reason why you are increasing, number one. And number two, how does that affect the common trader on the street of Lagos, for example? You elect people into office, today, Nigerians don't even know them. Nigerians might only know probably their state governor and the president. And these are the people that are meant to be grassroots people that are meant to go back to their own political zones and talk to them, hear the problems, and from there, if you don't know my problem, how can you solve my problem? So until that communication, hello?
But Babatokwe, do Nigerians make attempts to know their leaders? Do they make attempts to challenge their lawmakers?
That's what I'm talking about, communication gap, communication difference and gap. The most important thing here is that most Nigerians don't even know that these people are responsible to them. You know, there is a situation whereby we can sensitize the people, and I've said it over and over again, whereby if I don't have a power over you, you will not feel responsible to me. I have voted you into an office. I should have the same right of voting you to recall you back. And even though there's a part for that in our constitution, the people should know how to enact it. Sensitize the people. You know, until we do that, most of these legislators will tend to take us for granted. You know, the communication gap is so bad, and people should know their rights, and people should be told. Not everybody went to school and can read the constitution, but people can oral, verbal communication, tell people that this is what they can do. If they don't create an avenue to speak to you, have a town hall meeting. When I mean town hall meeting, call the people in their zone, in their constituency, sit them down. What are your problems? How can we solve them? If you don't know a problem, how can you solve it? So the communication should be brought back if it ever was. So I think the communication is bad.
All right, but Atiku, if the lawmakers or the leaders are not making attempts, you know, to reach out to the people, and Nigerians themselves making enough efforts to reach out and challenge their leaders, it's a two-way communication thing.
Well, if we look closely at the political structure of Nigeria, I think I will try to drag ourselves back and look at where we're coming from. I think we have a lot of cultural revolution in Nigeria. We're coming actually from, of course, 16 years is enough to transform people's mentality, but we have to understand that we're coming from a military settings. If you look at the political structure of Nigeria, Nigerians are actually organized at the grassroots. Within your local government, you have landlord association, people actually meeting Saturdays or maybe every last Saturdays to actually talk about issues that affect their communities. I think where the loop is simple and it's straight. Number one, the connection between, of course, the politician, and when I talk about the political class, I'm talking by extension, the legislators themselves, and then across also the executive, they have their own problems also. And the connection is where the problem, I mean, that's where the problem really lies. So to your question, how do we, I think the question should be, how do we now bridge this gap? I think that's what as a loop does. In terms of communication with the citizenry, historically, culturally, we have this military mentality. We are giving you. It's as if it's not about service delivery. It's about gifting. It's about helping you. And that's why it's not uncommon to see some legislators using public funds to get things done and then branding it as if they're doing a community a favor. And then the community is also looking at them as if, of course, they're actually Lord Commanders and other things. I think evolutionarily, I mean, in my little bit of research, I mean, in some local communities, I think that's changing now. We're seeing situations whereby some communities, I say some communities, I've not been to all communities, and we have to understand that. In Nigeria, we have well over, close to about 200,000 polling units, which in itself, you have close to roughly about more than 200 people per unit, per polling unit, which is funny enough. So with my little interactions, the moment you, just like he mentioned, the moment you try to sensitize these people and you give them the necessary information they have, the way they engage their legislator automatically change. I think that's why information is key. And that's why we continue to shout, okay, maybe you open the government itself, you open this National Assembly budget. Now, for instance, now we have the National Assembly budget. And I know how much you should. Of course, we're not satisfied with the budget, but within the budget itself, I know how much you are entitled to hold town hall meetings. So if you come into a community and you tell them I can't hold town hall meetings because I don't have funds, then it doesn't really make, it doesn't add up. But historically, what we've seen is that when you give us that kind of information, there are no facts, there's no proof to actually counter what you're saying. So that's one of those things that we're trying to see how we could actually bridge it to what we're actually advocating for, which is the OpenNASS. And notwithstanding that also, I think the citizens also, we've been through these long years of military rule, and the mentality of leadership is about, we have this, whether we like it, we call ourselves democracy. But when you see this position, that's why you see it repeating itself everywhere we go. And you see the political class believing that they are kings, and then the citizenry are their subjects. That's absolutely false. That's a fallacy. Because the power in which you actually represent is actually transferred to you by the citizens, and you're supposed to do things in line with what, of course, they want. So I think we need a lot of cultural evolution itself to transform ourselves from that military mentality that have actually begotten us for over how many years now? 1968, we don't even know how long it lasted. We need to do away with that. And within the political class, they need to become open. They need to explain more. It's not about, of course, I don't expect the legislators to build roads, but there are things that you could do that will know definitely you are taking action. I think that's where the missing link is.
All right, so Victor, this cultural evolution, where can we start it from? How can we start it?
The cultural evolution I think it has already started in Nigeria. I am on Twitter and I see the way people are starting to engage. People are starting to agree and disagree. And you know, the bedrock of every society is a debate. To be able to debate and to be able to air your opinion and be heard and listen to the opinion of other people. And I think that has started. What would, however, happen is that, or what, however, should happen is that these conversations that are being held online nowadays should be translated to the, to the communities. Like my brother Atiku said, Nigerians seem to be very organized at a grassroots level, but we seem to be very politically illiterate, even though we are very organized. We have a sense of community, but not a sense of political sagacity. We don't seem to be that politically wise. We do not seem to demand what is rightfully ours. And I know we've been disenfranchised for long. It's like the allegory of a slave who's been a slave for so many years, and he was suddenly released without some sort of psychotherapy. It doesn't really know how to integrate himself into the society, and that was what happened to us when we moved. We moved from the military era to the democratic era. There was no reorientation of any sort, and so people did not really know what was theirs, what was rightfully theirs. And when you look, the problem in Nigeria is very funny. We have a lot of things on structure, but are never implemented because the people have never asked for it. But that is changing now. It is changing, and that evolution has started. We will continue to demand, not just for OpenNASS, but for the ability to vote and be voted for. So if I am 18 and I am eligible to vote, then I should be eligible to be voted for, because it is vote and be voted for. That is the substratum of democracy. So I think the cultural shift is already starting to take place. The paradigm is shifting already, and we need momentum, and that is why we keep talking about it, and we will not stop talking about it. And even though I as a person, I am in the diaspora now, we are coming back. We believe in the principle of Moses. We believe in the principle of Jesus Christ, that many times when God wants to deliver a nation, he sends their deliverer abroad, then it brings them back. We believe that we are the Moses and Jesus of our generation.
All right, but do you agree that the evolution has started? Another diaspora Moses, you are.
All right. Actually, I would say it has started on social media, but it starts from somewhere. But most people have had encounter with most youth. They say what they feel like saying, and they argue and they debate, which is good on social media. And they tend not to convince each other. They just argue and argue and argue and argue and argue, bringing their points. They debate on social media, and at the end of the day, they either stand still or they just give up. What I'm talking about now is that how have they taken that from the social media to the real world now? When we talk on Facebook, we talk on Twitter, How many of us have said, okay, 2019, we want to start a party of our own, or we want to actually belong to a party, and we want the change to begin from us, because the change actually begins from us. You know, someone was making a joke to me and said that since 1992, when I was in primary school, they've been saying that we are the leaders of tomorrow. That before you know it now, Buhari came back. So was even president before I was born. And we, the leaders of tomorrow, we are still the leaders of tomorrow. You know, what I'm just trying to say is that it goes far beyond us engaging ourselves on social media, as my brother Victor Bamshaye said. You know, we should actually take necessary steps and action. We should kickstart. We should believe in some things, even when people tell you otherwise. We should start by saying, okay, we want to belong to a political party, we want to start a political party. How can we tend to start a political party? Why are they not allowing us to start a political party? Why do we need to pay this amount to start a political party to INEC? Those are the things we should be talking about, not the problems. You know, we should just fix the problem, but not dwell on the problem. Now, most people talking about, you see what the change you've brought in, what has it done for us? You know, passing blames and all that, and so many people, so many youths now, because youth, whether you like it or not, they are going to transform Nigeria. Whether the failed generations, our parents' generation, from 50 above, as far as I'm concerned, they have failed us. It will get to a time whereby we, the youth, will take over things. As you've said, we are the Moses of our time. We'll come back and we'll take over. And when we take over, we will sweep them with their broom. It's APC's broom. We used to sweep all of them away. And there's going to be revival and change in Nigeria.
All right, Baba Tope, the Moses of our time. So, Atiku, has the change, has the evolution started from where you are?
Oh, well, at least we could discuss about this. We can't some years ago. But if you go to the grassroots, you'll begin to see actions also being taken. And I can tell you some, I can actually give you stories about what is happening in the grassroots. For instance, issues around constituency projects. It's not uncommon now to see some communities actually calling their legislators to actions. It's already starting, yeah. This year, I've actually read reports, of course, close to about 7 communities writing letters to their legislators, demanding that this project must be implemented and getting the project implemented. So whether we like it or not, it's already happening. Well, social media for me is just an enabler. It's actually not the ends in itself. It's just an opportunity for people to actually, with like minds, to actually, of course, come together and then discuss topical issues. Of course, historically, you have the radio stations, you have the print media, and then you have where do you discuss formally? People actually clog around newspaper stands and they discuss some of these issues. But recently, the movement has actually moved with the advent of the internet. People could actually share their opinion. And of course, when you begin to share your opinion, of course, they say in politics that then you become more stronger and then you become more free to speak out your mind and then many other things. So the evolution has started already. And the government is also aware of that. And that's very recently, if you look at the social media, it's awash with a lot of politicians, a lot of pictures. If you look at Lagos State, of course, it takes a bottle of water, it takes picture. It puts down a bottle of water, it takes picture. So really, it's trying to actually show you and show us that, oh, I'm trying to get things done. But beyond all this rhetoric, I think governments are not alone. It's not about measuring government by the attitude of just by building roads, of course, employing Chinese, paying some Chinese, borrowing money from Chinese, paying Chinese to do roads for us. Governance cuts across many, many issues. I mean, number one, the fundamentals of governance itself is ability for you to listen. And of course, to pay attention to what people are saying. I think exactly that's where we are still not pushing enough. So my own conclusion will just be simple. Of course, around this topic that yes, the evolution has started and it's sweeping very fast. I can assure you by 2019, it's going to get more intensive. That's what I can say. Hello?
Oh, all right. Thank you so much, Atiku. Thank you so much, Baba Tope, for joining in. Moses of our time, the two Moseses from Ukraine. Thank you so much for being a part of this session, and we hope to talk to you guys soon. And we hope to see an action to the words and the passion that you have expressed, very soon in Nigeria. Thank you so much, guys.
Yeah, thank you for actually having us.
All right.
Thank you for having us. God bless.
Yeah.
Amen.
Oh, guys, Ukraine. How's Ukraine?
Oh, Ukraine is great. To thank God.
Yeah, okay. I mean, the